might be able to squeeze a few more minutes in. But are there any questions? Maybe take 2 or 3 and then answer. Eddie?
Yeah, trying to solve major topics, but I'm thinking about no politics of nature without work, no politics of work without nature. How that might pertain to big cat question. Well, I'm thinking the class politics of big cat conservation, right? It's interesting, by the way, there's only one kind of cat that's not endangered, and that's the house cat, right? And they're massively, dare I say, overpopulated, and they're in engine of extinction themselves. So that's an interesting question. They sort of domesticated themselves, and now they're wiping out birds, lizards, and everything else. But as far as all the other cats, and especially the 8 big cats, thinking about the different class politics, but it seems to me this, and I'm thinking ahead to maybe what Christian Brent might be saying later on about the necrotic state of the ruling classes. There seems to be a real class, distinction amongst elites, right? You have this sort of resurgent kind of settler colonial extractivist elite that wants to exterminate all predators, right? And you see this American ranchers, the war against wolves. I mean, this has not gone away, right? And I would maybe include with that new forms of trophyism, right? The big game hunters of the European and American ruling classes, which, there's still some of this, especially in the Middle East, like, shooting animals and putting them on the wall. But the new kind of trophyism is more from the East Asian elites, right? Eating endangered animals and aphrodisiac and so on. But then the other hand, you have these elites that are more into, like, conservation enclosures at the worst case, or at least, at the best case, ecotourism.
And Eddie, just for the sake of time, can you summarize into a question? I want to get one more.
The question is, what are the class politics of where can we go with these? Because we don't want to get the classic thing is culture versus nature, or here's the poor people that want to kill the animals, and here's the rich.
You hear this question?
Save them.
I mean, what is the class politics of? Okay, I'm gonna get one more question, but the class politics of big game. Of either big game hunting / conservation. Okay. One more question, sort of succinctly articulated, and then we'll pass it over to them.
I was just going to say, building off of that, the role of delinking possibly as well in that class politics, if Andre would speak to that after this on the conservation question.
Okay, and was there one more hand?
No.
No? Okay, super. So maybe, Joe, might we start with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of having a hard time understanding exactly what you're saying. Are you saying that it's a class issue of who gets to hunt big game?
Oh no, I'm just saying there's different kinds of class politics in any kind of conservation issue, and I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that there's a split though amongst the elites. I mean, some that are more into conservation, and some that are still into exterminate the predators, and but the whole conservation enclosures, maybe that's the question that a lot of people have talked about, but I don't think. I'm sorry about that.
I'll tell you, the reason why there's so much loss in game is a lot of reasons that don't even hardly have to do with here and now, except for because our population was so decimated so early as far as the big cats go. There was this, around the turn of the century into the 20th century, there was a Maharaja in India who put a machine gun on his Rolls Royce and went out shooting tigers. I mean, and they're doing the same thing. There's these places in Texas, in some states that are illegal, that have these animals that were bred by human beings put in enclosures, and the people who think they're big game hunters go in and shoot them. I mean, they don't even hunt them. They shoot them. And they think it's a big deal. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, that's hard for me to take. And having to go out in a day, at the turn of the century, there was people going to India and getting people to take them out, and they would kill 12 beautiful big cats in a day just to, I mean, that to me doesn't show manliness. It doesn't show that they're great hunters or anything. is kind of unjust and unfair, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
So I think those are good reflections in response to, I think, the point as Eddie is making. Maybe some brief comments from the other three in response to the kind of constellation of questions, because we're
Okay.
a little over already. But let's get some kind of closing comments and then we'll.
Maybe if I can say something on the subject, which is perhaps not the things that I've introduced, but I think there's a problem in general with the conservation. Because if you see how actually, well, before Europeans came to this marvelous land, there was no issue of conservation. Everything, and there was no wild. So the wild and this conservation is a kind of wild construction which kind of limits the, well, actually it makes a whole kind of park like Yellowstone or these kind of places like entertainment park, or as if you would go to kind of escape from society. While if there is no conservation, well, indigenous, for example, people, that was their land and they took care of it. So I think I would kind of put it in this perspective.
Thanks. Tobias and Andre?
I guess I would just raise a counter-argument, though, and it's related to the issue of delinking. Unless you don't have any nation states, how can you delink, right? Because part of the reason that we have nation states is for defense against hostility from other nation states. So, the Kurdish regions of Syria have to deal with Assad, right? And Turkey, and Iran, and the United States, and Russia, right? So how do you get there while you still have nation states? Similarly, conservation politics reflect the fact that we live in a world, that's organized around commodification of nature. So you set some boundaries in the ground and say you can commodify this less, it makes a difference. I think that in some way you need those boundaries. There's reasons for those boundaries, and they serve a purpose toward ends that we're all invested in.
Andre?
Thanks all for the questions, and yeah, of course, it's a difficult one. A friend of mine recently came back from Rojava, where a friend told him, a comrade, fighting for your own nation state is fighting for the right to be tortured by the police in your own language. And I tend to agree, and I think that nation states are extremely impractical. And they're impractical for a reason that civilization, the crisis that we are now, the logic of capitalism, the way that we are at the moment where we are in the historical capitalism development of the system, makes states very impractical, more utopian really, nation states, than alternatives to it. And I think that regionalism of Rojava, but you can also put the non-state spaces of Chiapas in Mexico and many other places that are sort of escaping through different ways the relations of capital and state, are not less utopian as an alternative, employing self-defense, but in a very directly democratic way, than the nation state. But this is an open debate, and I absolutely have no good answer to this, and it's, as you might expect, a debate that is being waged in many books, in many conferences, and of course in Rojava, Chiapas, and similar places.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Well, that was a great round of applause. Okay, excellent. And I think more panels starting in 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.